you don't encounter this in your first 50 cases because it can be quite challenging. So you need to screen your patients carefully. So I'm just going to show you a fairly simple small pupil. Okay. So I do uveitis, so I get a lot of these patients. So this is a patient that took a long time to control the uveitis, and finally we brought her to the OR. She was intumescent. Okay, and you'll see exactly what we talked about earlier, aspiration of the cortex. And then sweeping, you can actually see all the material coming towards the center as you sweep. Okay? And I'm just putting the capsulorhexis edge just at that pupil edge because I think I can get by with this pupil size without having to manipulate or stretch it. Okay, so once we go in with infusion, we get LIDRS. You can see it very severely here, right? So I've just broken that contact, made sure that I've got that contact well broken. Because this is a patient with PAN, so the iris is also ischemic, and you can see just how floppy this iris is, okay? So sometimes you can get away, but if the iris is a bit diseased, you find that because of ischemia, it becomes very, very floppy, atonic, and it becomes smaller and smaller and smaller, right? And certainly if you are starting phaco, you don't want to be caught up with this kind of case where you can't see exactly where your capsulorhexis root is, and it's something that only experts should be dealing with, okay? It can even be challenging if you try to put a confidence there. Look at the LIDRS. The moment I go in, whole pupil opens up and then it comes back again. Right, so you can imagine a patient with uveitis, lots of prostaglandin release. Okay, now it's challenging because the pupil is smaller. It would be good if this happened to you, you just took out iris hooks. But I'm going to just finish this case and put the lens in the bag. So when I inject the OPD, I need to be sure it's in the bag so that the lens gets into the bag. So sometimes you can get away, but don't make life so difficult. Okay? So I'm going to show you ways and means that you can actually avoid this. Very simple. I think Dr. Burnett already talked about this. PSS with adrenaline. Look at the pupil just dilating. And this often happens in patients who are very good blinkers. Right? The young patients, you instill the drop before you can do anything. You know, the eyelid just hits the eye drop and bounces it onto the cheek. So I've seen patients like this. You put the eye drop in, before the drop can really be instilled properly in the eyelid hits it and it lands on the cheek. So the eye drop never went in. And when you check them, if you put anesthetic, it doesn't work. Right? If you try to dilate them, the pupil doesn't dilate. And that's because they are just blinking so rapidly that the drop has no time to go into the eye. Okay? So in these cases like this, you just give it a little time, put in the intracameral VSS with adrenaline, and that's what I always start off with. So Dr. Sri Ganesh, when he demonstrated videos, the live surgery, he's demonstrated in the lab for you on the animal eye. Basically, first thing you do is a side pop paracentesis, but you can also put in VSS with adrenaline, right? That's diluted to get the pupil to open before you put in your visco. But this is my standard step for all patients, regardless. Okay, so I put in VSS first to get the pupil optimally dilated. Okay, so sometimes it's not so easy to open up the pupil because the pupil is actually a little adherent onto the posterior capsule. But it's easy to deal with this. After viscoelastic, the most friendly instrument is this Cogan tool. Why? You can deal with this side here there, but also here because it is a push and pull instrument. Only thing is that you have to make sure that you do not scratch on the anterior lens capsule when you do this maneuver. Okay, so if you remove some of this fibrous tissue, it still doesn't open, you can stretch, and what we recommend to do is stretching at an angle, but not towards the incision in case you make the iris there floppy and begins to prolapse. If it does not work, use iris hooks. Okay? So I've just shown you several methods in just one eye. Okay, the good thing about iris hooks is you can stretch more or you can stretch less. The iris is very, very fibrotic and atrophic. You want to stretch less in case you tear. Right? So I'm going to show you some more videos. Here you can see you have a bit of a membrane. So whenever you have membrane, you always remove membrane first. And that was using a capsulorhexis forceps. I just removed the membrane. I'm going to show you how you can save money without using things that are disposable. Right? You can use an autoclavable instrument called a Bieler pupil dilator. So first you hook on here on the iris proximally, and then distally you have 3 Coogan hooks that simultaneously get hitched onto the edge of the pupil, and then you push up all the hooks to the maximum, hold it there for a while, step up carefully, and look, beautiful round pupil. Okay, and you don't need any iris hooks. So if you have patients who cannot afford, this is a very useful instrument to have. They have instruments that can go through a 2.2 mm incision as well. If you find it hard to balance 3 prongs all together, right, coming out in front and 1 behind, they have a 2 prong in front and 1 behind. Okay, so that you have ease of just balancing this on the edge of the pupil rather than having 3 hooks simultaneously to be balanced. Okay, so more difficult now. We have a pupil that's occluded by a membrane. So as I said, first thing you do is remove the membrane. So when you pick, this is a capsulorhexis process. When you pick, you want to pick superficially, not too deep. You don't want to puncture the capsule. Right? Once you catch an edge, you see, like with the capsulorhexis like movement, you can actually remove the membrane completely. Once you do that, the pupil on its own is beginning to open. Alright, it's happy. At last it can open to reveal hidden treasure, as Ron was talking about. Okay, so you see a white cataract there, and you can do multiple sphincterotomies. Dr. Burnett showed you how to do just 2 across. You can do multiple, but the important thing is that you do not want to make the cut too deep, right? You do not want to affect the ability to dilate. Okay, so this pupil can constrict and can dilate post-operatively. If you cut too deeply, you will also affect the blood-ocular barrier, especially in uveitic eyes who have a persistent flare. You just want to cut a little so that post-operatively the patient's pupil can be well dilated. Okay, and you can just do capsulorhexis with this size of a pupil and then proceed with the surgery. Alright, so now we're going to get into a more difficult situation where you don't just have pupil membrane here, right, but this is in a child, and you have got peripheral anterior synechia. You can see all this here, and how do we deal with this? First thing to do is deal with peripheral anterior synechia. So I'm just using dispersive viscoelastic and a cannula, and I'm just going to open up. I couldn't even get my incision in because there was peripheral anterior synechia there. And then from there you can do the rest in a similar manner, inject at the same time with gentle sweeping, and then you do the posterior synechia. Because the posterior synechia actually binds the pupil and holds it taut as you release the peripheral anterior synechia. And then you find that this is a slightly different type of posterior synechia. It's not adherent only at the edge or the margin of the pupil. It's adherent even over the entire posterior iris. It's plastered on and stuck. This is the case with Vogt-Koyanagi-Haradas syndrome, right? And these patients have the worst kind of synechia, just like JIA patients. Okay? So I'm not going to dilate it so much because it's probably going to cause more disruption of the blood-ocular barrier post-operatively and more damage to the iris. So I'm just going to make it big enough for me to be able to see the posterior segment post-operatively. And because this is white, a 6-year-old child, I'm deciding to aspirate after staining with vision blue. But you can see that because this lens is so thin, right? This is a child. When I aspirated, my needle almost hit the posterior capsule. Okay, you can see fibrosis here as well as we tear. So I'm tearing just at the edge of the pupil because I want it as big as I can. Okay, and you see all the fibrosis there. But because this is a child, it's really quite easy to handle. All we need to do now is to aspirate. We don't do any hydrodissection. And at the end of aspiration, I was going to leave this child aphakic because this patient's uveitis is really not under control, and the patient actually ended up today he's still aphakic because I did both eyes and just left him aphakic. Just doing a posterior capsulorhexis, injecting some OBD after puncturing with the 27 gauge needle, opening it up, and then you can do a limited anterior vitrectomy through this opening here, which will not extend. And of course, 1 day late, many years later, if his uveitis is under control, you can see the sunset growth fundus, we can then come back and fix a lens for him. Okay? So some of the very complicated eyes is what we need to do. So you can see this dissociation between the infusion and the vitrectomy coming from the snug port, not the main position where incision is wider, it will allow the bridges to actually be out. Okay, now we come to devices. Okay, devices are costly because they are supposed to be used only once and discarded. So a very popular device is the use of a Malukin ring. So always again the same thing. If there is a membrane there that binds the pupil, remove. Alright? Don't just nudge it aside, which you can with a viscoelastic cannula. So this is insertion of Malukin ring. Very important before you insert. To put some viscoelastic to lift the iris off the capsule plane so there is space for these scrolls to be inserted. And then when you remove, I like to remove this proximal one first, hook onto it, compress the two rings as they come through, and then I put my Sinski hook in between to release the iris, or else sometimes you may tear the iris as you come back. So this is the version 1, which is using protein 4O. It's different, in fact, I prefer it to the 5O. The advantage of the next version, which uses 5O protein, the advantage of which is that it can go through a smaller incision, a 1.8 is also possible with this. So again, I'm going to show you now with the second version of the Malukin ring. Remove all membranes. This is very simple. Pupil is now unbound and is round. You check that ring in. Okay, after some viscoelastic, it will just slide into place. Hold on to it. I use a Kugeln hook because I don't like to stretch this too much or push that scroll into the angle and cause hypema. Now this is like picture frame. You can make sure you position it in the center. And then you do your rexes as large as you can. Compress the two. Right, put the scroll in between. Put your Sinski in between so it doesn't catch the iris. So this is the next video. I played it again. Okay. So this is the next one. Again, membranes. Remove them. Okay. After a while, you realize it's really quite simple and it's really quite gratifying to remove it. Because you have a nice round pupil. You can see this is thinner. It's a bit, because it's not stiff enough, it's hard to control when your pupil is very small. Okay? Pupil is not too bad, you see, it just doesn't do exactly what you want it to do. Okay? So this is another BKH, you can see how red the glow is. That's how you remove it. So actually, if you use these frequently, they are really quite easy to use, put in and to remove. Okay, but you just have to remember, put in some viscoelastic under the iris to create a space for you to slide this ring in. And if you don't get the two scrolls on either side in at the same time, don't be dismayed. You can just do them one at a time with the Sinski hook coming from the main incision. Okay, how about this? Where do we start? Where is the pupil? Is that a pupil? No? Somewhere, right? So you have to find the pupil, right? And you see here, this is a patient with uveitis. He's got band keratopathy, alright, to make it more complicated, right? But he's also 90 years old. All he wants is eyesight back. He doesn't care about this band K, otherwise we would handle this first, okay? So you just look carefully. Oh, there's a little pupil here. So I'm going to pick it up. Okay, I'm going to open it up. He's bound by a membrane. It's amazing, you know. Patient can go blind just from a pupil membrane. Okay. So be careful because this is very, very atrophic iris. You can actually rip the root of the iris if you yank too hard. Right? So withdraw the moving ring in. You can see the band K in the way. Slip it in. Now this is a really small pupil, right? So you see I have to help the scrolls to get on. And this one cannot get on. So I'm just going to take my time, use the Kugeln hook, and as I said, don't be dismayed, get it on in your own sweet time. Be careful, it can go behind and get lost. Okay? So you can do that phaco, and I use an endo illuminator to help me to see better, right? To bypass the glare that's induced by the microscope light that comes down on this band keratopathy. And then you can do your surgery safely. Right behind this band keratopathy, so that you can angulate the eye so that you get the red flecks without going through this light. And then you can remove it at the end. Okay, retract it, compress the two rings, release that last scroll, and then we made this patient very happy. Okay, because at last he could see. Okay, so sometimes Because your capsule opening is not very big, you tend to have a small CCC. Right? So in this case here, we opened up the sphincterotomies, and you can see because the pupil is much larger at the end of surgery, it is important for you to come back at this stage after LL insertion, that tells you exactly what 6 mm is, to then enlarge this, because very often these patients have had chronic inflammation in uveitic eyes, and this can develop capsular phimosis. So you can see a patient like this who has had capsular phimosis because the capsulorhexis was not enlarged despite the small pupil and the loose zonules. Okay, so very often they all come together, and you can see to repair such an eye, it's so difficult. I'm doing dissection of membranes, but not in the posterior segment of the retina. I'm doing it in the front of the eye. Okay, I'm dissecting all this fibrosis free from the anterior capsule, because this was really the cause of the phimosis. And how did this happen? Because the zonules were not strong. Okay, so I've spent a long time teasing out all the fibrous tissue here, and you can see that the anterior capsule looks so much cleaner now. Okay, and the pupil, the capsulorhexis has expanded to the normal size. This was not the case. I had done, someone else had done this, and then sent the patient to me. And at this stage, I can still enlarge the rhexis. Okay. So if you don't enlarge the rhexis, you will end up with problems like this, and the patient will say, my cataract has come back because they cannot see. Now, we have cases with ankylosing spondylitis who require cataract, and this patient requested for femtosecond laser. Now, I tried to dock this patient under a standard femtosecond laser. I was trying with the Victus, and I couldn't get the patient under, and this patient will not get under your Lensex, nor will this patient get under your Catalyst, because this patient is angulated, right, and he's so high up, right, and you actually have to adjust the bed in order to do this femto, and we can do that with the Zima femtosecond laser, which is a mobile femtosecond laser, and you can tilt the arm, right? You can't tilt the arm if you're doing Lensex or you're doing a Catalyst or other of those machines, but you can with the femtosecond laser, the Zima femtosecond laser. So after doing the femtosecond laser, after draping the patient, we then bring on the microscope. So you can see that it is possible, but the pupil was stuck. So how did we do it? First, remove the membranes. I said this, I think, 10 times. Okay, so once we remove the membrane, the pupil becomes round. Okay, it's round, but it's small. So in this case, we're going to use a Malukin ring. It's also getting intumescent, right? So all these things come together. Okay, so this is insertion of a Malukin ring. Wriggle it into place. You can't, you can always redo it. Right, so we got it under iris. Be careful, if you let go suddenly it can slip behind the iris. So I use cohesive viscoelastic so I can completely remove it. In fact, you can see from this ring reflex that this is intumescent lens. Okay, and I'm just going to place one single suture there. I make sure that this ring is actually centered. It's like a picture frame, right? You can move it around. And then I'm docking it with the Zima. And then I'm placing on the laser arm to do the femtosecond laser treatment. And after doing that, we take everything off. And it's important in these cases to stain the anterior capsule because the capsulotomy may not be complete. Alright? So I always check this to make sure, because sometimes if there's any viscoelastic left behind, then you will actually have refractive index which is not even throughout, and the laser will then not cut evenly. Usually we have to increase the energy to a maximum in order to ensure that this is cut through also in the nucleus. Okay? And then at the end of everything, when you've done all this, then you just remove the liquid. So you can do a femtosecond laser, it just takes a little more time. And like what Ron said about white cataracts, small pupils cover up big problems. So I'm going to end with this case here. I thought it was nothing, it's a walk in the park. 26-year-old small pupil, okay, fine, we'll just do it. And then we'll expand it, and then when I'm looking at it, strange look, right? So, okay, it's a bit whitish, so I better stain it. Oh gosh, What does this look like? Anyone knows what this is telling me now? What's going to happen? Have you seen a cataract like this? It looks like a dumpling. What are you going to anticipate? Anything? Ron, what do you think? It looks like a bowl. I thought I was going to go home with my last case.
Zonules?
Yeah, I think the zonules are gone, right? Otherwise you can't get such a severe wrinkling, right? And you know, no one had been able to really see the fundus well for this patient. I mean, no one could dilate him ever, right? So now when I stain everything, I say, oh gosh, am I glad I stained it? Because now I'm beginning to think, what am I going to anticipate next, right? So this is white anyway, so okay, whoops. Okay, so I'm beginning to tear. You can see fibrosis underneath there, yeah? And then when you tear, it's so elastic, right? Because it's a sign that the zonules are weak. Okay? You can see it's still wrinkled here, yeah? Okay, so it's complete. So next thing to do is to insert a capsular tension ring. I don't even know where the edge of the zonular bag is. Okay, but it must be pulled in because when I insert a CTR, you can see that the capsular axis is enlarged. So if you made a good capsular axis, it would be too big. Okay? Because it was all pulled in by the fibrosis. And then, you know, 26-year-old, a dense cataract. Okay, never mind, it's not so bad. You can still handle it because I asked for a 2.2 mm incision, but it took a little long to do this, and the wound was getting a bit white with this dense cataract. It's much denser than it looked. And then I was catching the capsule, it was going twang, twang, twang. Okay, so in the end, even despite the CTR, I knew I had to anchor this bag because it really was very loose, and this guy is only 26. Okay, so this is a suture snare that I showed earlier. So I'm inserting a capsular tension ring, and of course it has to bleed to add to my woes. Okay, I thought it was going to be simple, but I was lucky that I actually blocked this patient because he was only 26. I was going to do him under topical, but because of his age, I decided to block him, and I was glad because the surgery took so much longer. I had to manipulate all this, and I had to suture him as well. Okay. So when you have a very small pupil, you really don't know what you can face. And interestingly, he took on the shape of the Marugian ring. He had a 8-point contact. Okay, so pearls for small pupil. Not all small pupils need expansion, okay, but be very careful, they may start to climb down on you. You start to touch the iris, especially all of the patients who have had uveitis. Release peripheral anterior sagittal before posterior and always remove all membranes. They help you to circularize your pupil that remains round and circular and something that can dilate post-operatively. Expand the pupil without tearing the iris sphincter. So if you have a very chronic inflammation, right, you can see the iris is a bit white. Don't stretch it too much, alright, because it will rip and it will be permanently dilated. Pupil expansion can be safely achieved with iris hooks for the infrequent user, but if you're more familiar, then Marugian ring is very nice. It saves you 4 additional steps, alright, and you need to have a large enough CCC, which if you don't initially, please enlarge it after the RL goes in, because it can guide you as to what a 6 mm is, and you want to make it smaller. Beware of some small pupils because they can hide really big problems. Thank you.